So for the last couple weeks here at Bridge Church, we've been going through the book of Hebrews. And this week we landed on Hebrews chapter 7. And as I was digging into it in my personal devotional times, I'm going to tell you a secret, okay? You want to hear something that most people might not know about? Sometimes when I'm reading my Bible and there's big words and theological stances and deep discussions, my eyes kind of gloss over. Do you ever have that happen? I was reading through chapter 7 and there's lots of big words in there like covenant and priesthood and Melchizedek and Aaron and Abraham and Moses and Judah and your eyes are starting to gloss over right now, aren't they? Okay, and so I stopped. And here's what I do when I run into passages like that. I stop for a minute and I ask the Holy Spirit to show me something from His Word that's relevant to my life today. And I want to share that with you. You see, as I was reading through that, I realized that back in the time of Christ, and this has been happening for thousands of years, that the family that people were born into set up the expectation on their life. So for example, if you were born into royalty or power, there was expectancies accordingly. In the same way, if you were born into poverty, you were probably going to live in poverty for the rest of your life. And in some ways, I'm thankful we live in America, in a country that lets us create our own future, but chances are if you grew up in a blue-collar family, you'll probably end up being a blue-collar worker yourself. We end up just kind of following the expectations of what people put on us. And as we look through this passage, what we see here is Jesus was the son of a carpenter from a small town. There wasn't a lot of expectations on his life, but Jesus is greater. And what we see here is even though he was of the tribe of Judah, not from a tribe of priests and such, Jesus is a priest. He's a priest after the order of a guy named Melchizedek. Now, why is that important? You see, God was explaining to us through the writer of the book of Hebrews that because of Jesus, it doesn't matter what your past is. It doesn't matter who your family is. It doesn't matter what your social status is, what your ethnicity is. None of that matters because Jesus is greater. And the call on Jesus' life was greater than his past, greater from the family that he came out of, greater than the historical context that he was born into. And I want to encourage you today. Maybe you've grown up in church your whole life and you've just served the bare necessities of what you've been asked to do, or maybe you're new to the whole church thing, and especially with COVID restrictions, you don't even know where or how to get plugged in. Well, I want to encourage you, just like in real life, I can choose my future and my occupation and go beyond the expectations that others put on me. It's the same in my spiritual walk. You see, I need to find out what the Holy Spirit is asking me to do. Not just do the bare minimum of what others expect of me, but to walk in His steps. And I was actually encouraged in Hebrews chapter 7, verse 22, it says, because of this oath, Jesus is the one who guarantees this better covenant with God. You see, because Jesus committed, He gave the oath to be that high priest. He gave Himself. Jesus is greater than his past, than circumstances, than anything else. That means I can do more. I can do what God has called me to do. And as things continue to change in the valley, with COVID restrictions and the new normal and the soon-to-be new normal and the new normal after that, whatever that looks like, we can still make an impact to help people discover and follow Jesus. Not because of my past or because of what I'm expected on my life, but because I have a new covenant with Jesus. Because Jesus is greater than anything I've ever experienced, ever gone through, and He can help me get through any situation. He can help me serve and make a difference in someone else's life because Jesus is greater.